In the previous chapter of this tutorial, we created a basic clock app. We've laid out the user interface, we've made it a bit more attractive, and the last thing that we really needed to do was to remove the date part from label time. So we only want the time there because we've got time, then day of the week, and then the actual date as three separate parts. So if we have a look at how that's looking, there we can see it. Now at this point, in actual fact, we no longer need to have click for time. This button is now redundant, so we should probably go back into the designer, click on this button, and if we scroll down and remove the ticket visible, then it effectively disappears from the scene. We could delete it, but for the moment it's not doing anything. If we remove it, the user can't click on it, and therefore it's not a problem. So it's a basic app. It would be better if it was a bit more visually exciting. So we're going to have a look at the next part of the tutorial, and that is to use a canvas to draw a clock face on. Now we could put the canvas straight into the code we already have, but actually it's going to make much more sense to break out the canvas drawing code into its own named procedure. And this is a new idea for us in AppInventor. So let's walk through that. So I'm going to go to blocks, and I'm going to go to procedures. And in procedures, we've got to procedure or to procedure with result. And this time we only want it to do something. We don't need it to send any answers back. So I'm going to choose to procedure. And I'm going to change it from procedure to draw clock. So we give it a sensible name, no spaces allowed. And that is now something that we would like to be able to use at some other point. I'm going to put draw clock over here. And what do we want to do? Well, the first thing we want to do is to draw clock face. So we need to have something to draw onto. I'm going back to the designer. I'm going to go to drawing and animation. And I'm going to choose a canvas. And I'm going to drop the canvas on here. To make my calculations easy, I'm going to set the height and the width to be an exact number of pixels. I'm going to make them 300 pixels wide and 300 pixels tall. And it will help to see what's going on there if I actually also change the background color maybe to dark grey. Okay. So there's our canvas. It's available for us to do something with. And I'm then going to go to blocks. And I'm going to start to draw on it. So I'm going to go to canvas. And I'm going to call canvas draw circle. Now my canvas is 300 by 300. So I want the center of the clock to be at 150 and 150. I go to math and take a number. I can set that to 150. I can duplicate it so that X and Y are both at 150, which is the center. And my radius, I don't want to be quite as big. I'm going to make it 140 just so that it doesn't quite fill the whole of the screen. Okay, so let's see what that's done for our clock. Nothing, because at the moment, although I have a procedure, I haven't done anything with it. So I know how to draw a clock, but I haven't asked it to draw a clock. So what I now need to do is when the timer elapses, in fact, I'll put this into the button's hidden. When the timer elapses, I then want to go to procedures and I want to call draw clock. So that means that every second it will put this text into the labels and it will also attempt to draw the clock. Back here now, there we go. There's our clock face inside our canvas. That's slightly less than the width of our canvas. So far, so good. We now need to be able to draw a hand on it. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw the second hand because we can see that moving quite easily, whereas the minute and the hour would take a long time observing to see what's going on. So I'm going to go and have a look at my canvas and see what I can do. And there are some very useful things in here. Draw arc, draw line. Draw line sounds perfect, but I would need to know how to get the X and Y coordinates based on angle, and that might be a little bit tricky. What I can use instead is draw text at angle. So this is a bit of a shortcut that cheats our ability to use the maths. I'm going to stick this in here. The text, now at the moment it's going to complain every 5 seconds that it's not able to do what I'm trying to do. So for the moment I'm just going to disable this here, disable that block, and it won't keep trying to draw while I'm actually building the code. Okay, what is the text that I would like to put on there? Well, I want a nice second hand, so I could maybe just draw that as text with some minuses. Just put a bunch of minuses in there. The X and the Y of that are going to be 150 and 150, so the middle of the clock. So I can duplicate that. And again. And I'm actually just going to, for the moment, also use an angle of 150 just to see what that's looking like. Okay, so to get that working, I will now, of course, need to re-enable. So I'm going to enable this block. And back here, well, not really a lot happening. The reason for that is because I'm drawing black text onto a black circle, and that is not particularly helpful. So this fill true is what's filling in everything in black. If I change that to fill false, I would probably have to reset this. So let's just see if I can go ahead and do that. Connect, refresh companion screen. There we go. I've got an angle of something there. It seems to be at the center. So that's a problem for our text. Okay. Now, there is another problem in that it doesn't seem to be updating either. So what's actually happening here is that we need to redraw the circle every time it redraws the clock. We need to change the color. So I'm going to go to Canvas and I'm going to set, so I'm just again picking up anything. I'm going to change this to set paint color. And I'm going to set that to colors yellow. But of course now my whole clock goes yellow. So I need another one of these. Just before I try to draw the clock face, I want to switch to black. And then when I'm drawing the hand, I want to switch to yellow. And now it's always drawing an angle of 150. So we need to now tie this in. Well, there's a problem again though. It seems to be centered here. And what happens is that draw text at angle will go to 150, 150, but it will spread either side of that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to here. And at the end of my row of minuses, I'm going to put an equally sized bunch of spaces and a little dot. And let's have a look at what that looks like. Okay, so that looks a bit better. We might have to adjust the size of this here. But what I want to do, I don't want an angle of 150. What I want is an angle that's based on the angle of the second hand. So I need to somehow get that information from the clock. So I'm going to go to clock, and I'm going to come down to get seconds. So call clock, and we need to give it an instant. So the instant we need to give it is clock now. So if I tried that, something's happening. But of course, there are 60 seconds in a minute, and there are 360 degrees in that time. So actually, what I need to do is to multiply my clock seconds by 6. And it seems to be jumping a whole section now, but it also seems to be going backwards. So what we need to do is to take it away maybe from 360. So if I take a minus here, and I'm going to duplicate that and make it 360. And now it's going forwards. But you can see that I've got 19, 20 seconds and so on. Let's see when it's straight across the way, how many seconds it thinks it's got. It thinks it's got 30 seconds when it's actually at 15. So maybe what I really need to do is take away from 270. What I need to do is match up the fact that it wants the starting angle of 0 to be straight across the way when it's at 3 o'clock. So you can see now my clock is up to coming up 54, 55, 56 and so on, and at 59.00 seconds it was more or less pointing straight up. Okay, so there we have it. That is our clock with a second hand.